Hey mamas, this is Playfully Faithful Parenting, and I'm your host, Joy Wendling. I'm a seminary grad and children's and family minister turned stay-at-home mom to my 5 girls. Spiritual parenting is my calling, and it's my passion to help other mamas disciple their kids using the power of play and their own authentic daily walk with Christ. If you're a mama who wants to introduce your kids to Jesus and watch as the Holy Spirit transforms their lives, this is the place for you. I'm so glad you're here. So let's dive in and see how we can partner with God today. Happy New Year! Can you even believe it's 2022? I can't. But I'm so glad you are starting off the year with me here on Playfully Faithful Parenting. I'm so excited to share an interview with you today with my friend Kayla Alonso of Baby Devotions. And I met Kayla almost 2 years ago, I think. And almost 3 years ago. 2019 is now 3 years ago. So almost 3 years ago, through our blogs and Instagrams. And I've never actually talked to her, but we have messaged and emailed back and forth over the years, done different little projects together. And so it was so exciting for me to sit down with her on Zoom and actually talk to her about all things Christian parenting, and especially her new book. This is her second book to come out. It's called David, and it's a bilingual baby devotion, and it is absolutely adorable. I have a copy of it, and just so cute, and I love it. So I'm really excited for you to hear about her heart for parenting her kids for Jesus, and for you to learn more about this book. It comes out this month, and it's just so exciting. There'll be links in the show notes. Just hope you enjoy this really deep conversation that we have. So again, thanks for being here, and can't wait for you to listen in. Hello, Kayla. Thank you so much for joining us today on Playfully Faithful Parenting. How are you doing?
Good. How are you? I'm so excited to chat with you in real time. This is so fun.
Yes. When I started Created to Play a couple years ago now, you were one of the first other kind of blogging moms that I met online. And so I've been following you and your blog for a few years. And I'm so excited that we get to chat today.
Yes, I know. I was so excited when I saw your account, because I feel like now I feel like there's more like Bible play accounts like popping up, but before there was like none. I think it was like you and me and maybe like a couple other that was like what they were doing. And so this is exciting.
Yes. I think it's so needed, and it's so great to be able to see each other's creativity and to be able to encourage other moms in that. Mm-hmm. And so I have loved everything that I have seen from you, and it's so cool that you do this all with a bilingual focus. So I'm excited to talk about that. But first, would you introduce yourself and kind of give us some background information?
Yeah, so I'm Kayla Alonso. My husband and I live in Minnesota and are raising, 2, and now I'm pregnant right now. So we'll see, and due any day. So baby number 3, here they come. And raising our girls bilingually. My husband is from Mexico. And so we chose a minority language at home model, which means we do our best to just speak all Spanish at home. And so like my younger one, like she speaks mostly Spanish, and she's now started like mixing in some English, but it's very much like Spanglish still. And so everything is just in Spanish over here. And so I blog in English because that's my that's my downtime. That's my mom time. But over here, most everything is in Spanish. So,
And
yeah.
were you fluent in Spanish before you met your husband?
No, I did not speak like any Spanish. And I started learning a little bit when I met him. Like, I failed high school Spanish. My teacher was like, don't take the next class because I will fail you, but I'll pass you so you can get your credits and graduate. So I did not think I'd ever speak Spanish. And now here we are and just live a very Spanglish life. So
God had other plans.
yeah, I guess so.
Yes, that's so fun. So we've mentioned that you have a blog, and on our podcast, we define spiritual parenting or Christian parenting as living out your authentic faith in front of your kids and inviting them to get to know who God is. This is based on Deuteronomy 6, verses 4-9. What does spiritual parenting or Christian parenting mean to you, and kind of like what's it look like in your family?
So I think like there's lessons taught and there's lessons that are caught. And so like for me, a lot of times those lessons that they catch on is when we like are praying around the dinner table, or when they see me reading my Bible, or even the way we just talk about spiritual things, like from that being spiritual disciplines of prayer and fasting to like talking about justice and God's heart for justice, and hearing and talking about them and just bringing them on that journey with me. I've seen them catch a lot of things from that. But then there's also times where like you actually have to sit down and teach them and talk to them. And like, yes, we have Sunday school, and yes, we have children's programs for that. But I think so much more often, like us as parents are able to do that more effectively because we know our kids, and it's one-on-one time with them, or I guess for me, like 3-on-1, but like that's a lot smaller setting than like a large Sunday school class or children's area where they can actually talk and process. And like my 5-year-old the other day, she asked me about this Christmas carol that in Spanish they translate Silent Night as Noche de Paz. And she was like, Mom, why does this song have a lot to do with fish? Well, fish in Spanish is case. And so I don't know how long she thought that the like Silent Night was about like fish and the nativity, but like those are those opportunities where you can clear that up and you can like answer those questions. And so I mean, that's just kind of how it looks, just letting them come alongside, and then also making room for those conversations, or when they're younger and can't vocalize that. Like we do a lot of sensory play over here because my younger one like loves sensory everything, like Play-Doh, sensory bins. And so we tend to do a lot of that just to explore and see where she's going to take the story, or see what she's actually picking up. And so that's always fun. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. And just, I love that no matter how many different moms I ask this question to, I hear something different. And just the way you talk about the different things that kids just catch on in your in your home versus the things that you intentionally teach them. And I think what you said about Sunday school is also, it's like so important, because I mean, also Sunday school is just like a couple hours a week, and you are with them, all day, every day, minus school, depending on kids' ages. But yeah. And so I think that's really, really cool. And just for our non-Spanish speakers, Noche de Paz, it means night of peace, right?
Yeah, it means night of peace. So I mean, but it's just how they translate it. So,
yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's so funny. And just the way that she's processing both the language and the faith aspect and able to have those conversations is that's so fun.
Well, and for me, like that's why I started initially kind of doing play-based things at home, because recognizing that my children, their heart language is Spanish. So if they're mad at me, they're probably gonna yell at me in Spanish. Or if they're scared, they revert back to Spanish. Or like most of our Sunday school teachers don't understand my 3-year-old because she speaks lots of Spanish, maybe some Spanglish in there. But, and so recognizing there's a point where they're not going to pick up anything from those lessons because it's not in their language. And it's important. It was important for me for them to understand that Jesus speaks their heart language. Like, he doesn't just speak English, that you don't have to jump so high and reach some sort of benchmark to be able to know Jesus, that he comes down where we're at and he's like, this is Christmas. Like, that's what it's all about, is that Jesus like came and was with us. And I think for us, a very practical way to do that is by teaching them the Bible in Spanish and showing them like Jesus speaks Spanish too. So, and being intentional with that in our family, that is a focus for us because it's a part of our family culture.
Yes. Yes. I love that. And just that, I mean, even for all kids, you know, they all have different heart languages.
Yep.
And you know, to me, I think that's one reason why using children's Bibles can be really important
Yeah.
to start, and not solely, you know, storybook Bibles, but using that because they're written more in your child's
Yeah.
language and something that they're going to be more familiar and more comfortable with. And that is play too. I think play universally is every kid's heart language.
Yeah.
And
Oh, for sure.
and so for them to get to play and explore God and Jesus and the Bible through play is so pivotal for them and
Yeah.
their faith. And so yeah, I think that's just really beautiful. And it's such a blessing that your kids have that opportunity to learn that, you know, and the way you are creating resources for your kids that you don't have access to is just, it's really inspiring. And I would love to hear more about this newest resource that you came up with, your new book. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I started a board book series a couple years ago. We started with Eve in the Bible because I was like, that's a Bible character no one talks about, and use that to explore the concept of imago Dei, that we are made in the image of God, and using and talking about body parts and giving kids their like language of like, oh, that's your nose and your hands, but in Spanish and in English. And so this next one is exploring David and the Psalms as a way to explore emotions with kids. Because I was in college before and taking like a Bible class on the Psalms before I think I even realized that the Psalms are prayers and that all of them have so much emotion. And we talk a lot with kids about David and Goliath and you can do big things for God. But there's this other piece that is David is a very emotional person. Like, and when you like really get into his character in the Bible, you see that. And I think that's such an important piece that if we're going to teach children about, there's this warrior, we also need to teach them about the intimacy that he had with God, that he could share his emotions. And we talk a lot about that, I feel like, in education, just social emotional development. And that's a big thing that's on the rise. So how does that play into our faith? Well, this is it, that we can cast our cares on the Lord, that he cares when we're angry. Like David had a lot of very angry Psalms, and not all of those are like great to read with children, but there's pieces that you can share, that you can say, you know, that emotion is valid and God is bigger and he can take that. And that's okay. And because I think, and I've heard this from a lot of people, like, it wasn't until I was much older that I really understood that side of God, that like, oh, like he can handle that. That's okay to talk to him about. And especially exploring it, I've heard from a lot of friends that they're like, that are boy moms, and I guess I'm going to be a boy mom now, that there's just not a lot of resources teaching boys about their emotions. And so wanting to create a resource that's specifically for that. And before I was a stay-at-home mom, I worked in lots of group homes with young kids. Like, I think the youngest age group I worked with was about 4 or 5. And a lot of the work we did was helping them identify their emotions. So the emotions we discuss in this book are happy, sad, scared. Sorry, it's late, so my brain's a little tired. And so those are, but they're just very basic emotions, but those are kind of the foundation that if you're working with a kid that has no language for how they're feeling, that's a basic framework, and all other emotions kind of come and flow from those. And so giving them the words, and that's been really helpful for me as a mom with two very strong-willed and expressive toddlers, like to give them words to say, I am so angry right now, or I am so happy, or I'm excited. And so giving them tools to do that. And so that's basically what the book is. At the end of the book, there are some basic ways that parents can continue to play through that topic with their kids and play through the idea of David and praying our feelings to the Lord. And so, that is basically what the book is.
Yes.
Like, long story, long, but yeah. So.
No, I love it. And I had a chance to read the book, and I had the same thoughts about, I'm not a boy mom, but thinking of boy moms and the fact that David is this warrior and this king, and that they can then relate that back to somebody who was, strong and brave and fought for the Lord, also came to the Lord tired and scared. And I think it's also can be really easy for us to teach our kids to pray like when they're scared or when they're thankful. But though all those other feelings in the middle can be really tricky sometimes to help guide our kids in learning how to pray.
Yeah.
Like praying that you're tired and telling God and knowing that he cares that you need sleep, like, because he does. And I think that's, a harder concept, or it doesn't come as naturally to us. And so I think your book is it's super cute. And I just adore anything that is teaching kids emotions and then the fun of having it bilingually. And I think helps for like English speaking kids to see that there is this whole other world and that God does speak in other kids' languages. And
and that's something that I'm a Sunday school teacher for our preschool class, because that's where my daughter is. And when I started teaching, I kind of started playing with throwing Spanish in, or doing the classes bilingually. And that's just been a beautiful thing to see the kids that like, not just learning Spanish, and that's not even my goal. My goal is always to point them to the greater theology that we of the global church, that we are not, just to put it bluntly, that God is not like a white American man like that. I think, or with blue eyes and blonde hair, I think that is something that can get passed on to our kids if we're not careful. I mean, because if that's all they're surrounded by, and those are the only missionaries that they see, that can be what they see is like, oh, like that's what Christianity is. And that's not, is that like pointing out that in our church, we have people that speak French, we have people that speak Spanish. And I always point that out. And we have people that speak ASL. And so, as well as several other languages, and pointing out like, I can't speak all of those, but I can speak Spanish. And so we're gonna learn a little Spanish so that we can pray with others that maybe we don't speak the same language with, and just so that they become comfortable with this idea that every single piece of that and those differences are a reflection of God. Like, God created us in his image. And when we worship him out of like a multicultural heart, like that, we get a bigger picture of what God really looks like. And so, I don't know. So, I mean, for me, like, obviously we have the Spanish in there because I was like, well, if I'm gonna write these books, my kids need to understand them. But also from a greater perspective, like English speaking kids, I think totally benefit from them, because then they get a glimpse of like, oh, like Jesus doesn't just speak English, like, and I can pray with people even if I don't understand. And
yes, no, absolutely. And I just kids pick up like young kids can pick up little bits of other languages
Mhm.
so easily. And I think part of that is that they are created in the image of God and that they
Yeah.
have this ability to connect with others and to be bigger than one culture.
Yes.
And,
Mhm.
you know, as kids grow, their brains do, you know, lose that ability because they don't hear those other sounds and languages, but they're created with that ability
Yeah.
to connect with and hear and communicate with the whole world.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
just the way, just like God does and
Yeah.
that he connects with others. And so I just think, as something as simple as a few Spanish words for my 4-year-old, can
Yeah.
have lots of depth and beauty and lessons for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So thank you for doing that, for just writing those books and being bold enough to let it outside of your family and not
Yeah.
just,
Well, and
keep
I
that for your
mean, I
girls.
always say, like, I'm just gonna put out there, like, I don't feel like I'm the best person to like write these. Like, I am a white American woman. So it's been like really important to me to like partner with native speakers. So Claudia Serrano Johnson is someone I partnered with that she's edited all my books. Like, I'll write them in Spanish and in English, and then she'll like go over them and be like, maybe don't say it that way. Like, that sounds super weird. So, and partnering with a Latina illustrator, Alejandra Lopez. She's the one that illustrated this book. And just because I'm not the best one to be making a bilingual resource, but I also have not been able to find a resource that I'm like, I love this for my kids. And so being able to put that out there and just say, well, okay, this is what I have, and I'm going to do my best with it. And hopefully it can bless someone else as well. So,
Yes, absolutely. And I'm sure it will. It's a super cute book, both the images and the text and the purpose behind it is just super cute. So
okay.
I think families will definitely benefit from getting that. And so where can families find that?
They can find it on my Etsy page. It's Baby Devotions on Etsy. And that's where it is for right now. I'm hoping to get it up on Amazon. They've been giving me the runaround a little bit, but hopefully it will be there soon as
Great.
well.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And so I want to go back and talk to you. I just want to hear a little bit more about you using play and faith together
Yeah.
and how you use play to teach the Bible and different faith lessons in your family.
Yeah, I think we use it a lot. I mean, oh, I guess when I started this journey, just like something that stuck out of my mind is how there's so much research on how kids learn best through play. And yet, and so we will do these like math activities and these really elaborate, like bookish play activities. But when it comes to faith, we like gather our kids and like sit on the rug and we're going to just like read the Bible like straight from like the big people Bible, like the real Bible. And my 2-year-old like just was not going to do that. I mean, that's just not, and that's good. That's not how they're wired. Like, they need to move and they need to run around. And so it started me thinking, okay, well, if we know kids learn best by play, well, what are ways that we can teach them those most important things, like those faith foundations through play? And so a lot of that has been, we listen to lots of music and lots of songs. I love sensory bins because I do. And my 3-year-old like loves sensory play. And so that's been really good for her. And just providing opportunities for them to explore the story. And that's been, I don't know, I just have loved seeing that when my kids were younger. Like, they weren't as verbal, so you didn't get to see that. But as they've gotten older, like hearing my 5-year-old show my 3-year-old how to set up the nativity, and she said, well, everyone needs to be looking at Jesus. because he is like what Christmas is all about. And recognizing no one's ever like said that to her, but that's what she picked up, and giving them the opportunities with those open invitations, just saying, you really get to see more of what are they picking up? Like, what is their brain catching onto theologically? And my 3-year-old the other day, she was like reading one of our Christmas books, and I like reading. She's not really reading it. She's like rereading it to herself, but hearing what she picked up was, don't be afraid, baby Jesus is the king. And that's like, that was all she like picked up. But like those moments and hearing them say that, now that they're a little more verbal, it's like, okay, they're picking up more than I thought. But it starts with that, by just getting on their level. And I think on a theological standpoint, when we recognize how do our kids learn and how are they wired, and meeting them where they're at, we're showing them that God with us, Emmanuel theology, where again, like you don't have to be like in your 30s and know all the things to be able to meet with Jesus. Like Jesus meets us where we're at, and like he meets us in play. And so, I mean, every kid is different. So like my older one hated sensory, did not love it at all, but she loves like songs, and she loves pretend play and dressing up. And so we did a lot of that. And my younger one is all mess and all sorts of craziness, but just like finding ways that okay, this is where my kid's at. How can I show them the gospel through that? Or what am I learning in my Bible stories? Right now we're doing a read through the Bible series. And so we started in Genesis and have worked our way through the Bible. We haven't done all the stories because some of them are just not appropriate for a 3-year-old. I don't want to read about Ehud. And yeah, I don't want to read that story with my 3-year-old. I don't feel like that would go over well. And so, but looking at the larger picture, like what are the lessons I'm learning that I can pass down to my kid, and how can I do that in a way that they'd understand? And that's just good, like hermeneutics. Like that's just good contextualization, and that's what they teach pastors when they go to Bible school, is like reading and figuring out what the scripture is actually saying. And then how are you going to convey that to your audience? Like who are the people you're speaking to and preaching to? And I mean, you see Paul do this all throughout his ministry, is changing, even when with his name changes, like from Paul to Saul, like that was just him code switching depending on his audience, right, making himself more relatable. And so when we're doing that, when we're saying, okay, how can I play through the story with my child, we're just practicing good contextualization and saying, this is what the story is saying, but in a way that you might understand. And maybe you'll pick it up and maybe you won't, but we'll find out. Because I mean, this is just foundation stuff. This isn't like the end of discipleship. This is just, we're teaching our kids how to love the Bible and showing them that Jesus cares about them as a little person. And as they get older, you can go through those like bigger questions. Like my 5-year-old, we haven't been doing a lot of stuff because she goes to school super early. But the gospel conversations we've had, like, okay, what does Jesus's justice look like for the kid that's getting picked on at recess? Like, what does that look like? And what would Jesus feel about that? And those are the conversations we have now that she's verbal and 5 and in school. But like, it starts with that basic understanding that Jesus loves me, and like he has stuff to say to me, and I can engage with that.
Yes, that is just so beautiful. I love all of that. And I think one thing that I thought of as you were telling that story at the end about talking with your daughter about justice is, a lot of people assume that when we just play through the Bible and we're not doing like hardcore devotions from the King James with our kids, that it's soft or it's just washed out. But if your 5-year-old has been playing through the word for, her life, and is now able to take that and see Jesus on the playground with this kid being bullied, like that to me just shows that there's so much depth and, experience and play.
it's amazing, like what they get. Like my kids, like, I mean, and my kids just say shocking things all the time. Like right now she's on this kick where she thinks she needs to get her ears double pierced. And I'm like, your earlobes are not even big enough for that. But then she'll be like, oh yeah, all the kids were making fun of this other kid. So I rounded them all up and made them apologize. And so it's like, okay, well, that's good. Like, I'm proud of you. And I mean, so it's like, you take it both. Like you have to take both sides of that. But like, it's amazing what they pick up if you're just intentional to sit with that and say, okay, I don't have all the answers. And I think especially this is good for parents that like, this is, I hate using this word because it's like super trendy, but like deconstructing, like I feel like that's kind of a thing that a lot of parents, or especially of young kids and like millennial parents, are like going through, is like, well, I'm just still trying to figure out what my real faith is and what I actually believe. But if we're consistent to like, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing, and can really, letting our kids see us, like really figure out, well, what do we believe on that? Can like at least the groundwork for them to be able to do that as well. And show that it's okay to ask God those hard questions and figure it out. But sorry, that was all going that, but just like being able to sit and be intentional and show up with our kids and let them see our faith and let them and do faith with them and say, so that they don't feel like this is just something adults do. This is just something my parents do, but it's for them as well.
Absolutely. Yes. And yes. And when they get to play through it, and I love that you talked about how your two girls like different kinds of play. And so you've adapted how you do Bible play for each of the girls and their preferences, their play preferences, and just how that lets them fully experience God and the Bible in their own way. And they're going to understand that more than if they had simply just memorized, something without being able to play through it and experience it. And, if they just are memorizing scripture after scripture after scripture, like that's not, like the words might be there, but the meaning and the personal experience isn't going to be there the way it is if they're memorizing one or two verses and really playing through that.
Yeah, for sure. Like, because I mean, I love memorizing scripture, but you also have to have that component where it's like, okay, what does it mean? Like, what does it mean when we say, well, for God to love the world? Like, what is that? And giving them the opportunity to explore that. And that's how it sinks from their heads, like into their hearts, is by letting them explore that and kind of test that out for themselves.
Yes.
In different ways.
Yeah. And play is, like you said, the research is there that's the way, play is the way that kids do that best. And more fully.
Mm-hmm.
So I've loved this conversation, and I could keep talking about it all night with you, but I know it's getting late for you. So I really believe that moms need play too. So what is your way of playing?
Oh my gosh. I 100% think it's just making sensory events. Like that's so dumb. Like setting up play ideas, like, because I have a lot of people are like, how do you do it? I'm like, this is my creative outlet. Like, you don't understand. I do this for me. And then sometimes my kids like enjoy it and sometimes they don't. But like, I just really enjoy like creating and being hands-on. So that's probably where my kid got her sensory experience. Like, but yeah, that's kind of what I tend to do. Like, we love the outdoors, but definitely crafting and working with my hands. And my crafts never turn out very cute or nice. Like, they're not super Pinteresty, but I try and I had fun. So, I mean, that's what matters. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Even I think process art versus product art is important, even for moms. Yes. So if my audience wants to connect with you, what are the best places?
Probably Instagram. I tend to be most active there. And that's just at Baby Devotions. Also, I have email that's babydevotions@gmail.com. And I'm also on Facebook with the same stuff. And I have a Pinterest board. So,
and what's your website, your blog's address?
Oh, yeah. It's www.babydevotions.com.
Awesome. Well, Kayla, thank you so much for sharing. It's been so fun. And I love getting to talk about play with other moms who get it and get excited about our kids learning who Jesus is and doing that through play. So thank you so much. And I look forward to talking to you soon.
Yeah.
Well, mamas, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me on Playfully Faithful Parenting. I'd love to keep the conversation going over on the socials. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you felt encouraged or equipped by today's show, do me a favor and leave a review. I can't wait to hear your story. Till next week, keep playing and pointing those littles to Christ.